How many times did you vote today? Illegally? Legally once. Illegally around 12 times. Let's start here. I get in the Uber and I'm traveling to the Gowanus Canal, in the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, New York. Okay? I'm on my way. I'm on a journey. I'm on my way to go to the Majority Report. Scene. I start talking to my Uber driver, as I do every single time I'm around an individual that is living in New York City. I say, hey man, do you live in New York? That's how I started off, because sometimes people live in New Jersey, right? Because the city is unfortunately too unaffordable. Okay? He says, yes. This is a 55-year-old Asian man. And I ask him, oh, did you know that there's an election taking place today, a New York mayoral election? He says, yes, of course I know. I say, oh, if you don't mind, who are you voting for? And he says to me he's voting for Andrew Cuomo. Stops me dead in my tracks. This is the first time I've encountered someone thus far that said he's not locked in on Zohran Mamdani. But the story doesn't end there. What I thought was even more interesting is the fact that he goes, I actually voted for Zohran Mamdani in the fucking primary. He tells me that he is a lifelong, solid, reliable D voter. And I saw this as an opportunity to convert a potential Cuomo vote back to Zohran Mamdani. Okay, he went for Zohran in the primary and now he's in the general going for Cuomo. I was like, what does that mean? He tells me that Zohran Mamdani has a lot of pie-in-the-sky ideals and that it is far too costly and that he'll never be able to pay for it. And I told him, well, did you know? And I asked him, like, what do you mean? What are some of these issues? Like, what are some of the policy promises that you think are impossible, right? Impossible to do, impossible to pull off. He says to me, well, the bus thing. He wants to make the trains free. He wants to make the buses free. You know, he wants to make it all free. We can't do that. We can't have that. We can't have nice things. And I say to myself in my internal monologue, here we are. Another American coming from an immigrant background who has been bludgeoned into thinking that good things are not possible. And yet he's voting against his best interest. So I asked him, did you know that the fast and free buses thing actually took place in New York City? Because as Zohran Mamdani, when he was an assembly member, he actually got one of the lines to be free. He says to me, no, I did not know that. I say, yeah. Then I ask him, where'd you hear about this? Don't you feel like a lot of these billionaires and a lot of these millionaires that don't mind if the city is unaffordable are actually just kind of lying to people to say that these things that are very possible, that have been done before, don't you feel like those guys are trying to manipulate people? Good working class people such as yourself. He says, yeah. He says, you know, you're starting to convince me. He tells me his children are voting for Zohran. His children are actually pie in the sky idealists. That they actually convinced him to vote for Zohran in the primary, and yet in the general, there is a difference in opinion. That's when I was like, I wonder if his kids are actually fans of mine, but couldn't convince their dad. So I don't know if any of you guys in here, if you have, if you had a similar situation with your parents, they went for Zohran in the primary, and then in the general, they kind of wanted to move in the direction of Cuomo. Just speak out. Okay, you got to push your parents a little bit more, guys. Have conversations with them. But basically, I was able to, I think, convince him that voting for Zohran, just like he did in the primary, but also in the general as well, would be the good thing to do in this circumstance, because it was actually the billionaires and millionaires that were out to get him. I asked him, what did you think about Bernie Sanders back in the day? He said he liked Bernie Sanders. He liked Bernie Sanders quite a bit. He ended up voting for Hillary Clinton, of course, in the general, but he was a fan of Bernie Sanders and still is. And I said, well, remember what people did to Bernie Sanders in the primary and how much they attacked him and how they never stopped really attacking him. And yet we now realize that his politics, his vision for change was correct. That's what they're trying to do to Zohran Mamdani. And I think that was a decent way to get him to change his mind on this. I will never feel satiated. I will never feel as though it is a given. I have been hurt too many times before, and I too, as a lifelong leftist, am always going to wait until the very last moment. I'm going to wait until the very last moment. I'm not going to celebrate ahead of time. I'm going to be steadfast in my support, but I will still, of course, wait until the very last moment